All right. So supposedly I'm live. I'm using a new application here, so everybody is part of the experiment with me. We're using StreamYard instead of BeLive, so we'll see. So far, it's a little easier. So I actually prepared tonight. I have some notes that I'll share with you, and then we'll get on with the show. So yes, I mean, first of all, I'd like to say, greetings and welcome to our September edition. I'm Amy Armstrong. I'm your host. This is our Hot for Teacher edition, featuring stories about teachers, mentors, and our inappropriate feelings for them. In addition to my own story, you'll hear from authors Helen Starbuck, KD Webster, Sue Fine, and Thomas Kichi. As students of all ages return to school in various formats across the country and around the world, the struggles we're fighting are being thrown into relief. We're seeing COVID outbreaks, broke adults like me snatching up discounted school supplies, hearing crying in the backyard, and when we open the window, realizing it's actually an adult who's trying to help kids with Zoom. It's tough out there, but it's comforting knowing that teachers are still there for us. They're still preparing lessons and trying to engage in the teaching and learning process. And one teacher shared with me that the online format is challenging, especially with younger children. When they're at home and have parents who work, the children are often supervised by grandparents. And, I'm using supervision very loosely there. It usually consists of the grandparent kind of naps in the background while the kid logs into the lesson and then does whatever. And this one student in particular likes to change up her outfits. She has made appearances with crotchless fishnets on her head and just naked. I was kind of impressed when I heard about this. Even as an adult, I don't know where to buy crotchless fishnets. So whatever your challenges are this September, I appreciate you taking the time to join us for a while as we share some stories and discussion and hopefully help ease whatever is on your mind for a little while. And I'm going to circle back to some of this at the end of the show, but I just have a few reminders that our next show is on October 21st at 7 p.m., and that's Mountain Time, and it will be on this channel on YouTube. We will be featuring music by the Dollhouse Thieves and stories by Aaron Michael Ritchie, Julia Allen, Thomas Kichi, Shea Herlihy Abba, and Matt Bile. I may have some additions for a few very short works. It's October, and in honor of the month, the theme is the spirit realm. So it's all things spooky and, outside of everything we've heard of in heaven and earth. And if you like what you see and hear tonight, please subscribe to the channel. You can also hit the bell and get notifications every time a new video is posted. And thank you so much for taking the time to support local artists tonight. So to start us off, we have Helen Starbuck. So Helen, I'll go ahead and add you to the stream and you can introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Helen. I'm a local
Hi, Helen.
Colorado author. I write a mystery series and some standalone romantic suspense novels. I got invited to do this, and it really strained me. I'm not a short story writer. I start writing a story and it ends up, 99,000 words. So, and also I had to stretch my brain to kind of think of a teacher interaction. So I finally found one, and it's a short story. And so, Amy, whenever you're ready, I can start.
Okay, I will just let you take it away, Helen.
Okay, well, first of all, you have to understand this is autobiographical, so don't make too much fun of me. So here we go. Let me begin this story by warning you. I have never been good at figuring out how to handle crushes. I'm better at it now, but it still baffles me. Over drinks sometime, I'll tell you the story about a recent crush. Not tonight, though. When you're a teenager, you're so emotionally fragile. That fragility keeps you from doing a lot of things. That and inexperience. And it makes life difficult. Before high school, my crushes were all celebrities. Safe, unattainable celebrities who I would never meet and never have to actually talk to. That changed in high school, but I hadn't. I was an introvert, and to be popular, you had to be an extrovert. Stick straight hair was the fashion, and I had unmanageable curly hair. I was considered unappealing by myself and those around me. I was awkward, baffled, and reclusive. Wasn't popular, nor did I have boyfriends. I did have crushes, and suddenly they were real guys, not guys on the screen or on a poster in my bedroom. Real guys presented a problem. To get their attention, I would actually have to talk to them. I crushed on Ken, the guy that sat in front of me in social studies, who wore English leather aftershave. I crushed on JD, the guy who sat next to me in study hall, who was blonde and handsome and dating the head cheerleader. And I crushed on Guy, who sat 2 desks in front of me in math class. The only criteria you had to meet for me to crush on you was be handsome, be funny, and be unavailable. Not much has changed for me over the years. For romance, I have always had to write it. That gives me time to think, time to edit and craft the story, time to find just the right thing to say at just the right moment. And of course, I can create my leading men. Life offers no chance to do that. My inability to dance the male-female tango has changed a bit for the better. I'm faster with the verbal comebacks and teasing, and I can come up with spontaneous, funny comments. I'm less afraid to put myself out there now. In college, when I crushed for the first and only time on a teacher, that wasn't true. It was the beginning of fall classes, and I was lost in the humanities building. I glanced again at my printed schedule and gazed around trying to locate room 112 from a dozen similar doors in a long hallway without any indication on most of them of a room number. A late 20-something guy with an armful of papers and a couple books walked toward me in the hall. He was gorgeous. Dark, brown, longish hair with a bit of a curl to it, a square jaw, blue eyes behind John Lennon glasses, and full, sensual lips. I still remember those lips. Lost? He asked with a slight smile on his face. Yeah, I stammered. I could feel my face going red. You don't know where room 112 is, do you? You're in luck. Come with me. He motioned for me to follow him, and I did, all the while thinking I'd follow you anywhere. I hadn't reached the point in life where I would have said it just to see where it took me. Now I would. My college degree required a year of foreign language, and I'd registered for beginning French. It was the only language I had even a passing familiarity with. I'd taken French in high school, but that was pretty much a joke. The teacher wasn't very good, and I wasn't a very good student. I hadn't learned much, but at least the language sounded familiar. Mr. Gorgeous opened the door and held it for me, and I walked into a classroom with only a couple remaining chairs empty, 2 of which sat directly in front of a table with a small podium on it. I was flustered and embarrassed as I took my seat, wondering if he would sit next to me, and then watched in disbelief as he dropped the armful of papers and books on a table and smiled at the class. I'm Mr. Longsdorf. You can call me Ron. I'm a graduate teaching assistant in the language department, and I'll be teaching the class. Oh my God, he was the teacher. French was suddenly looking much more interesting, and to think I might have signed up for Spanish. How many of you remembered to buy the textbook for class? He asked, not looking hopeful. There were only 4 of us out of about 20 students who had actually purchased the book. Most waited to buy books until they decided if they were going to drop the class or not. He saw the book on my desktop and smiled. Glad to see some of you are prepared. I still have the book. At 18, it didn't take much to set my heart tripping. The effect Ron Longsdorff had on me was like going from weed to heroin in terms of the ability to cause pleasure and stupidity all at once. I spent the remainder of the class fantasizing about kissing him and running my hands through his hair while he went over the syllabus, discussed his expectations, how to contact him during office hours, and what he expected us to be ready for the following day. It was a good thing he handed out a packet of papers with the information on them. I had stopped paying attention when he praised me for buying the book. Like one of Pavlov's dogs, I would crave and respond to that stimulus for the rest of the year. One of the reasons I had been less than thrilled to find out I had to take a year of foreign language was that each class was 5 credits. That meant an hour-long daily class. Now, I felt like I had won the lottery. I would see Ron every day for the next year, assuming I worked it right and was able to register for his classes every semester. This is when my ineptitude stepped in and hatched what I thought was the perfect plan to capture his heart. I would be the best student he had ever had, and he would find that so appealing that he and I would ride off into the sunset. Told you I was a dork, right? I became that student we all hate, the one whose hand shoots up to answer every question, the one who always sits in the front row right in front of the teacher, the one who studies as if it were the Hunger Games and lives were at stake. It got his attention, just not the way I had hoped. It never occurred to me that had I been a poor student, I could have seen him during his office hours and perhaps received some personal tutoring. It also never occurred to me that I could, in fact, visit him during office hours with some vague excuse and have a chance to talk to him. As I said, I didn't figure that out, and by the time I did, it was too late. I was pretty sure he was fully aware of how infatuated I was. It was painfully obvious. It was a good thing I studied after class because it didn't take much to derail my thought processes in class. I loved the way he said my name, Hélène, not Helen. When he would call on me in French and use my name, I was lost. It was only because I studied so much that I was able to even reply. He would do things that both baffled and thrilled me. He showed up one day with a pipe for God's sake, that he didn't light up. He just chewed on and used it to gesture with throughout the class. Watching him play with that pipe was mesmerizing. I could imagine sitting in front of a fire, talking while he smoked his pipe. Then imagine those lips that played with that pipe on me. Sitting in the front row, I could smell his cologne and had wondered for quite some time what it was. I wanted to buy some and fantasize about him. One day I worked up the courage to ask, "Your cologne smells really nice. What is it?" I asked as students filed out past me. I could feel the heat rise from my neck up to the roots of my hair, and I cursed my inability to talk to him without blushing. His cologne didn't just smell nice. It made me want to bury my head in his chest and inhale him. He eyed me with a tiny quirk of a smile and said with a slight nod, "Merci, Hélène, c'est pas qu'au rabanne." Jesus, I thought, even his cologne sounds sexy. It did, and he was, and I had no idea what to do to get his attention. I always remember his demonstration of how to pronounce a particular sound in French that we were all having trouble with. To help us, he demonstrated. Purse your lips as if you're going to say ooh, and instead say e, so it comes out as ooh. Do that thing with your lips again, I thought. So for once I followed through. Can you do that again? He did, asked me to do so as well. I did, all the while imagining our lips meeting. They didn't. I felt unsophisticated and totally out of his league, and I was. We ran into each other sporadically on campus, and most of the encounters were disasters from my point of view. Either he didn't notice me at all, or when I said hello, he'd say hello back with a bit of a puzzled look on his face, probably because he knew he should know who I was, but couldn't place me. I attended the French Society get-togethers where you had to speak French during the party. I kept hoping he'd attend and I'd have the chance to talk to him outside of class, but he rarely did, and usually when I wasn't there. One day he mentioned in class that his students should come to the party that Saturday. So I figured he'd be there to see how many of us showed up. I wasn't going to miss that for anything. He said hi briefly when he showed up and then made his way around the room, talking to other students and staff members. They served wine at these parties and in true French style weren't all that interested in carding anyone, so I had indulged a bit. I was nervous that he was there and hoping to make an impression. He stopped to chat again and after a moment or two asked me in French if I'd had enough to drink. I was so flustered I couldn't reply to what he'd asked, so he asked in English. Then he told me to go easy on the wine, and I wandered off. Totally deflated, I left and walked home to the dorm. The closest I ever came to seeing him without clothes on was one weekend when my friends put me up to no good. They knew how big a crush I had on him. There was no way to avoid knowing. That was all I talked about. They had cooked up a plan for me to arrive at his apartment door and ask him to help me with an art project. I was to ask him if he had any French magazines for a collage of some sort and hope that he'd invite me in. And then, well, they weren't specific on what was to happen then, and God knows I had no idea. I was still a virgin. Other than kissing, I was at a loss. They escorted me to his apartment house and urged me on. I don't remember how they found out where he lived, but they were intent on helping me. With a pounding heart, I knocked on his apartment door and waited. He opened the door a few minutes later. He wore a white terry cloth bathrobe. From what I could tell, he had no clothes on underneath it, and his feet were bare. He greeted me by name and said what a surprise it was to see me. At least he knew who I was, and I was terrified. I stammered about the art class and whether he had any magazines, and he smiled and said that he was sorry, but he didn't. At that awkward juncture, I heard a man from inside the apartment ask him who was at the door. It's a student of mine, he called back, and then said to me, it was nice to see you. I hope you find the magazine. He smiled and closed the door. It took me a while to figure out a couple things. One, my crush was going nowhere. Two, he was undressed, covered only in a robe. And three, there was another man in the apartment asking him, in essence, what's taking you so long? It struck me as odd, but in my unsophisticated mind, it took quite a while to understand that the love of my life was gay. And I never crushed on another teacher. The end. So that's my story.
Oh my God.
The story of my life.
That was amazing. That was so funny. You should, be under pressure more often, Helen. I mean, that was just awesome.
I guess so. It took me a while. I kept thinking, this is, I don't know where this is going. I got to think of something else. And then I finally thought, he's a teacher. What the hell?
That was so great.
Thank you.
Oh my goodness. Okay. Well, all right. So I will let you off the hook here, and okay. I will go ahead and add our next guest to torture, who is KD Webster. Hi, KD.
Hello. I love that story of Helen's. Okay.
It was hard to follow.
I think I need to learn French.
Back.
Good to be back. So this story is actually going to be a continuation of the first story I did for Stories Live. I couldn't really think of a name for the protagonist, so we just call him the Nameless Detective. And yeah, let's get into it while I got my courage. Okay, so
Okay, you'll be fine. Okay, good luck.
it's not raining as hard anymore. Little more than a drizzle at this point. There are still the occasional lightning streaks to light up the midnight New York sky. I count the Mississippis for the thunder that follows. The lightning's miles away. Soon it'll be just another night in the city. The calm after the storm. I guess here is as good a place as any to start this story. Here being after the fact. I should probably back up a bit, give a little context to the story. See, there's this bridge in New York City, the 145th. It spans across the Harlem River. It's the same bridge that I'm standing on now while I tell this story. Same bridge I was driving on 2 years ago with my wife and daughter, Daphne and Helen. Now, some days prior to that drive, Daphne kept telling me the tires were worn and the brakes had been giving. I told her I would take care of it tomorrow, then another tomorrow, then tomorrow again. Then came the night we were driving in the rain. A hydroplane, a freak jump, and a car plunges into the Harlem River. I make it out, and I try to free them. Underwater, cold water, dark water. For as long as my breath held, I tried. I broke my leg in that tragedy, but I broke something else too. Something in my mental makeup. My leg healed, but the mental, it never did. Whatever broke up in there in my head, it stayed broken. I left something down there in the deep with my wife and child. I can't really put a finger on what it was. Thing is, whatever it was, it got replaced by a healthy dose of guilt, of infinite sadness. Survivor's remorse is a bitch. Crap, I did it again. I made a promise to my daughter, Helen. Helen will be almost 6 years old now. I promised her I wouldn't curse anymore. I'm sorry, Helen. So a while back, I became convinced it'd be better to join them down there below the water than live and breathe above it. And yeah, I know the bodies are no longer there. I know they're at Eternal Peace Memorial Cemetery, but it's about the symbolism, you know? Tonight would have been the night for the jump. The forecast was for heavy rain, and I arrived at the bridge and took out my wallet to look at their picture one last time. Well, at that moment, the wallet was taken out of my hand, a snatch and run. Took a moment to catch up to him. Now, the wallet snatcher turned out to be Lester Grimes, escaped convicted felon. I caught up to Lester in an alley not too far from here. Well, then Lester pulls out a gun and, oh, hold up. I'm missing something in the backstory. The part where I mentioned I'm a former cop and now a private detective. I even had that private detective look. You know, the London fog trench coat, dark denim jeans, white button-down shirt, and I have a bulletproof vest underneath. The only thing I don't have is a gun. Not a fan of guns, even when I was a cop. I carry around a walking stick, though. Doesn't exactly fit the private eye motive, I know, but it works for me. It's a nice stick, too. Dark brown, hardwood with a smooth finish, round ball padded handle on top, and rubber grip at the bottom. So anyway, here's where I'm gonna make a long story short. Lester Grimes shoots, thinks I'm dead. I'm not on account of my vest. We fight, he dies. End of story. Well, end of that story. The backstory. I feel like I'm missing something in that backstory, though. No worries. If it's important, it'll come to me. So here I am, back at the 145th Bridge, 30 minutes later. So why am I doing this soliloquy instead of jumping in to join Daphne and Helen? Wait, so is it soliloquy or monologue or narration? I don't know. My little brother's tutor, she'd have had a field day with my poor choice of words. Miss June Brooks. Now, let me tell you, I was so enamored of her. Now, here's the thing though. My brother, he's 8 years under me, and Miss June Brooks and I were near about the same age. Now, she had a voice that could hypnotize and curves like Aphrodite, and well, she had a butt that swung like a pendulum when she walked. My bad. Guess I kind of digressed a bit. Let's just say I was hot for teacher. I never made any moves on her though, on account of my brother. But maybe that was part of the reason why I was so drawn to Daphne when we met. She was a teacher. She taught middle school English classes. It's probably why I won her over after taking her to karaoke on our third date in, and I did Van Halen's Hot for Teacher. Wait, okay, I'm digressing again. Or is this what we would call a segue? I don't know. I still feel like there's something I forgot to mention in that backstory. So anyway, I make it back to the 145th Bridge with my walking stick, and I got about 3 minutes to spare. The rain has started to come down nice and good, and lightning in the distance drew closer. Now I was trying to gauge how much ground speed I need to jump for maximum distance. I was crunching numbers and doing a calculation of distance and weight and momentum. Now, I never was the best at math in school, but I needed to get this to track. And I was only going to get one shot at this. Then I heard it. A feminine voice, loud, distressed. Just take my car and go. I don't care. Just leave me alone. I didn't look. Despite how close the voice sounded, I tried to ignore it. Even told myself I couldn't hear anything over the thunder. After all, I had 2 minutes to get the timing right. So I laid the walking stick down on the curb and got ready for my running start. Then I heard another voice, deeper, masculine, even louder. Come on, Becca, get in the car. Get out the rain. I didn't mean it. Domestic squabble. Let them work it out. I had a family to get to. But you never mean it, do you, Leroy? So at that moment, I turned my head to see a car that at first was moving to a slow crawl, then it came to a stop. The woman walking as brisk as her rain boots would allow. Her dark blue overcoat had a swaying flow that would have been better served had it been buttoned up, rain and all. A light-toned man in a black wife beater with jeans and suspenders got out the driver's side. He ran up to her and grabbed her by the elbow. His muscles flexed, making the tattooed female image on his bicep shift. I said, get in the car. Now you made me get all wet. He had her in height and weight. Had me as well, if I'm being honest. Look, my students at the school need me, and I have to have my head right for them. Please, Leroy, just let me go. A teacher. Crap. Daphne would kill me all over again if I went to join her and Helen without doing something about this. Every bit of me wanted to cuss like a Marine who stubbed a barefoot toe. Daphne, Helen, give me a moment. I said. I picked up my walking stick and headed towards the fray. This was most definitely not how I wanted the night to go. So a bunch of snot-nosed brats more important than me now? What about my needs, huh? That's when I saw something that made my blood boil. This Leroy person, he just up and backslapped this woman so hard she stumbled and fell. So now, this just became a thing. When I was on the police force, calls for domestic disturbances were always the tough ones. You got the ones that didn't want to press charges, the ones who blamed themselves for being on the receiving end, and men like this Leroy, who think he's God's gift and talking like he's got a chip on his shoulder. Saddest part, when they end up going back to the men the next day. See what you made me do? He stood over her like a lord master, fist clenched as if he dared her to get up. This wouldn't have happened if you would have just gotten in the damn car. Well, there was nothing I can do for tomorrow, but tonight, yeah. Hey, Leroy, that you, man? I'd hoped to distract him from going for another strike. Both he and the woman looked up and towards my approach. Who the hell are you? Leroy hadn't expected an interference. Oh, it's just me. The Becca woman saw this as a chance to scramble backwards and to give her some distance. Leroy pointed at her, but kept his eyes on me. I don't know me, he said, looking at me intently. No worries, you will. Becca helped herself back to her feet. Her cheek was clearly bruised, a clear contrast to the soft features of the rest of her. Her makeup ran a bit. Was it due to the crying, or was it because of the downpour? I guess that's the thing about the rain. No one can tell the tears. This ain't your business, Pops, he scowled. Pops? Wow. Is it the great patch in my hair? I looked at this man standing not even 20 feet from me. He was the lean and solid type. You know, that pretty boy looks with just enough facial hair to say he has some. Early 30s, maybe? No wonder he called me Pops. Kids these days. He stood his ground, chest swelling in and out with each breath. Thing is, you're right, I said. It's not my business. It wasn't until I saw what I saw. You pimp slapped this woman. No way, I couldn't unsee that. She ain't your woman, is she, man? Still, ain't your business. Ain't? Come on, grammar, son. Okay, yeah. But see, my mother told me, a so-called man who puts his hands on a woman, well, that isn't a man. So what you say about it, Leroy? You's a big boy, though. You think hitting a woman makes you a man? He made a look that was a cross between a sneer and a smirk as he reached behind his back. Pops, I'd say me knowing how to use this makes me a man. He shows me his offering, a 12-inch fixed blade tactical knife with brass knuckles at the grip. Now, seeing him brandish that pot sticker of his, well, it made me remember the part of the backstory I almost forgot. My walking stick. It's not just for support. The bald handle disconnects to form a hilt to a 30-inch sword blade, a Japanese import, forged and folded of Damascus steel. It cost a pretty penny, but it was worth every cent. So as I pulled the hilt from the scabbard, I was tempted to say something corny and high schoolish like, I don't know, you call that a knife or some such. But the sight of the gleaming steel spoke for itself. I lowered the blade though, and I looked at the woman to reassure her. Take the car, Miss Teacher. Get out this thunderstorm. You got mine some more in the morning. I got this tonight. She nodded in silence and made her way to the vehicle. Becca, you stay right here. Rebecca! But she ignored him. Guess she'd heard that tune too often before. I used my body as a buffer between the two, moved to match Leroy's direction. The driver's side door opened and closed. Leroy took a step towards the car, but blunted his step when he saw my sword follow his move to intercept. No, no, I said. This is a school night. You think you bad, old man? You think that stick makes you something? He glared at me. His eyes had their own sense of lightning about him. He was like a bull ready to charge a matador. Fingers caressed the brass knuckles around the handle of that knife. First pops, now old man? Wow. I mean, yeah, my bones do crack a bit, but come on, old man? His growing rage told me he didn't care for my nonchalant approach. We started circling each other, like boys about to throw down in a schoolyard fight. You come between me and my woman, and you talking like this is a game, Pops? What the hell? You think this is a game, Pops? I paused as if to give it some thought, but also to let the rolling thunder pass by. No, but I will tell you what I think, though. See, I had something planned tonight. What you and Rebecca? I was going to leave you be. Wasn't my business. But then you had to haul off and hit her. See, I can't let that slide. So here we are. He stopped with the circling and stood his ground. I could tell he was trying to decide his next move. So what you gonna do, old man? Make all Zorro-like? Try it, Pops, on the best blade in Harlem. He put a spin on the knife around his middle finger and caught it with the remaining 3 fingers into the knuckle holes. Impressive, I said. Old man, Pops. Maybe I needed to teach Leroy a lesson. You know, school of hard knocks. Yeah, okay, I know it's cliche. Forgive me. I'm in a mood. I ran the sword through a figure 8 in the air, saw in the wrist. I did a quick rotation that went into a parry and thrust and pointed the tip, rigid and unmoving. But then I guided it back into the scabbard. It was now an unassuming walking stick once more. You see, kid, that's all slick in the flicks. You know, the big screen, silver screen. I then placed the walking stick on the pavement beside me. But you see, where I come from, you're either good enough to walk on water or you're bad enough to wrestle the alligator in the swamp. Leroy smiles all teeth now. Okay, Pops, we'll play your game, he said as his knife clanged to the ground. He dropped low and got in a stance well known in the gym and on pay-per-view. A boxer, huh? I said. Yeah, so what? Come on. Now, in retrospect, I don't know what made me do it. But I stood toe-to-toe with Leroy and we started exchanging blows. Strangely enough, each punch I took, it was as if my tension was being released. Sure, I blocked my face well enough, but Leroy was experienced enough to get body shots in. His puzzled look, he didn't know he was punching my vest instead of my guts. Still, the frustration of not being able to save my Daphne and Helen, it was slowly seeping away. Maybe this was what I needed, a catharsis. Not just this fight, but the giving action to my anger, to shout with my fists instead of my death wish, to rage against the feeling of uselessness. The more he punched and kicked, the more I wanted more, the more I answered them in return. In that moment, The night was summed up in a cacophony of lightning streaks and strikes and punches and thunder. I harnessed my guilt. I channeled it into targets on Leroy's person. I welcomed each hit he gave, took it, and returned to sender. In the end, it was experience over youth. Lesser Grimes had lasted longer, but I let Leroy live. My last punch to his throat sent him to the pavement, gasping for air. I hovered over the once towering figure, now bloodied, bruised, and broken. Okay, man, okay, he gasped with a strained voice. Hearing Leroy's voice again brought me out of myself. I looked around. Surprisingly, no one was within eyesight. Thankfully, that meant the fight and my face wouldn't be plastered all over social media. I fixed my soaking wet clothes to look respectable again. Nothing I can do about the blood on my hands but let the rain wash them away. But even the rain was starting to wane. The thunder, many Mississippis away. You know, Leroy, for reasons you'll never understand, I actually needed this. I looked down at the knife and thought about what could have been. Maybe Rebecca will leave you. Maybe tonight's the night. Or maybe she'll go back to you tomorrow. I don't know. The struggle between mind and heart and whatnot, you know? But the detective in me, I'm going to be checking up on her. Yeah, I'll be around. I used the tail end of my trench to pick up the knife. I still had some pals on the force. Might want to run prints, DNA, you know, cop stuff. Might be a case that can be closed, or maybe not. It was a pretty hard rain tonight, but still. You can go, Leroy, I said, but the knife, it stays. Leroy rose and started to say something, but he felt his throat and thought better of it. Instead, he glared at me and gave me the finger. Then he walked away. A few minutes later, and I'm back where I began, staring over the water, thinking about Helen and Daphne. But now, I'm also thinking about this teacher, this Rebecca. I made a difference tonight. Who knows? Maybe I can make a difference again. I am a detective after all. Daphne, Helen, with your indulgence, maybe I don't quit my day job just yet. And that's it.
Well, way to go, Katie. It's always good to have you. And I don't know, I've got to admit that you did a great job, and lots of people, you know, have sent in tons of good comments, you know, saying how much they loved it and everything. And I don't know, I'm just like, you all are just being my good babies tonight too, because it's like I actually get to hear the stories for a change, which is awesome. Like there hasn't been a lot of like need for tech support, so I mean that's been happy for me. But yeah, great job.
Thank you.
And yeah, so I will go ahead and take you off the hot seat and bring up our next brave soul here. Cheers. Actually, here, I will officially cheers you. This is from South Dakota. This is from Firehouse Winery. It's the Oak Chardonnay. All right. Brought to you by, no, not really. Okay. I'll see you in a little bit, Katie. All right. So next up, we have one of my favorite readers. Not that everybody on here is not one of my favorite readers, but we have Sue Fine. And Sue Fine actually is like one of my buddies for a writing group that I go to where we do improv writing together. And, you know, we also had pieces shown in a show called Writing is Art, co-hosted by the Cottonwood Center for the Arts and Pikes Peak Writers, which we're both involved with. So welcome back, Sue.
Hey, how are you? Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you fine.
Oh, good.
Yeah, so are you all excited?
Say again?
Are you all excited to be here?
No, I'm so nervous. Are you kidding? I'm trying all this new stuff. I don't know if it'll work. We'll see. KD was great.
All right, well,
KD was great.
Oh, okay. Well, it's a tough act to follow, but I know you're up to it.
We'll see.
Okay. Well, I'm sure, but I understand if you don't trust me. That's probably a wise decision. Okay. Anyway, I'll let you go.
Okay. Let's see. So hot for teacher, in my case, means rage at as opposed to a crush on. It's coming from confessions of a bedwetter, stories of shame, lost control, obsessive acts, fear, and rebellion by me, but in the story, I'm Lily Lepin. And this first part's called Dismal School Days, Guide to 6th Grade Stretch Mark Prevention. Stretch marks, the noun, irregular lines or streaks on the skin where it has been stretched or distended, especially due to pregnancy or obesity. I cringed in the line of 6th grade girls as we waited to get weighed. Nurse Pierce stood posted beside the medical scale, pencil parked behind her ear, spectacles on, armed with a clipboard on which a spreadsheet listing all the girls was clamped. She bore the official nurse's garb. Her crisp white cap was bobby pinned securely into frizzy, coarse salt and pepper hair. She wore a form-fitting white uniform that was barricaded across her cliff-like bosom and snug against her waist, the tailored skirt falling an appropriate distance beyond her knees. Below were thick legs clothed in semi-sheer white pantyhose, white sensible shoes recently polished, the white laces tightly cinched into symmetrical bows. Her expression was severe. As the line moved forward, I was drawn closer to this woman. She was the enemy. Before each girl stepped onto the scale platform, Nurse Pierce adjusted the larger and smaller weights to 0. Balancing itself, the scale's pointer floated gently up and down until it reached stillness, spot in the center. Then, squinting over her plain, dark-rimmed glasses, Nurse Pierce scrutinized the girl to determine her weight. "Get on," she instructed. As the girl stepped on, Nurse Pierce adjusted the scale to the weight she had estimated, then fiddled with it to pinpoint the final number. She prided herself on being in close range when targeting a girl's weight. When the scale balanced, tongue pressed between lips like she was threading a needle, she scrutinized the number and announced it to the room before recording it on the clipboard list. 82 pounds and 82 and 1/2 pounds. She then positioned the girl against the height rod. "Stand up straight," she snapped. She pushed the headpiece down until it rested on the girl's head. 4 feet, 11 inches. Recording the height, Nurse Pierce released the girl and barked, "Next." To my dismay, the line moved forward, and soon I was next. Looking me over, she said, "Step on the scale, Lepin." She called me by my last name. She immediately set the larger weight to 100. Shocked by her assumption that I weighed at least 100 pounds, I attempted to stand softly upon the scale, hoping that my light touch would diminish the pounds the scale would reveal. To my dismay, the pointer hovered above center. Her head close to mine, Nurse Pierce started to fiddle with the smaller weight, moving it up. 1, 2, 5, 9. When she hit 10 pounds, it seemed the scale would balance. Not quite. She nudged it up 2 more pounds. 112 pounds, she announced as I turned beet red. "Stand up straight." As I strained to stand up as tall as I could, she slammed the headpiece down on my head. 5 feet 2 inches. As I got off the scale, reeling from both the number she attached to my weight and the public announcement of that number, Nurse Pierce said out loud to no one in particular, "Funny, she looks like she weighs more than that," referring to me in the third person like I wasn't even there. A few girls snickered. It was mortifying. At 12 years old, in the spring of 6th grade, I was a preteen who had shattered the glass ceiling of the 100-pound mark. That day began something that has followed me ever since: calorie counting. The battle between my flesh, or too much of it, and the calories in food has been going on ever since. When Nurse Pierce publicly proclaimed me overweight, according to her, me appearing even heavier than I weighed, I set out on my first of many diets, some successful, some not, all involving stringent degrees of abstinence. I'm not sure what I stopped eating, but I do remember no longer buying lunch at the school cafeteria, especially not my favorite ice cream sandwich, dessert. Instead, on my lunch hour, I walked a half-mile home, where I would take one slice of bread, 100 calories, slap on a 1-ounce pre-sliced piece of American cheese, 100 calories, and broil it. After eating the severely scaled-down version of a grilled cheese sandwich, noting the calories in my head, my brain buzzing like a Geiger counter, I'd walk back to school, making it for the first afternoon class. There was no time to socialize on the playground, and I especially missed the ice cream sandwiches. I've never seen this diet published, but I think of it as the broiled grilled cheese lunch hour walking diet. To add urgency to insult, at some point my mother explained that if I lost the weight before turning 13, I could avoid stretch marks. After 13, she intimated, I would be doomed to carry the chains of stretch marks for life. I have no idea where she came up with this notion or why she chose to tell me. Maybe it was something cast down upon her by my grandmother. My mother had a thyroid condition and had at best been called pleasingly plump and at worst fat her whole life. Though it was a crueler statement, it reminded me of her claim that if I wanted curly hair, which I did, I'd have to eat my bread crusts, which I did, but the curly hair never materialized. Wherever this tale about stretch marks came from or why she said it, it made me frantic. I became more determined to stick to the diet. This first diet succeeded in the immediate sense, although never lost was the neurotic chronicling of calories in my head. It is a constant subtext like waves crashing against rocks in my brain. By the time 6th grade was over, I was still 12, thankfully not yet the irrevocable stretch mark age of 13. I had lost 12 pounds and grown 2 inches, reaching my final height of 5'4" and coming in at 100 pounds, like a prize barn animal at a country fair. As a reward, my mother took me clothes shopping. She also made some dresses for me, one I remember in particular, a form-fitting 60s pop art dress. I cut my bangs, so no longer was my long brown hair starkly parted in the middle, achieving the distinct look of a mod rocker right out of Carnaby Street, London. I entered 7th grade in this styling way, complementing my orange and hot pink flower power dress with a black velvet beret, jauntily tipped to the side, black lace stockings, and ankle-length, elastic-sided black boots, just like my grandfather Sam had worn in Birmingham, England, where my father was born. I was immensely relieved I had lost the weight before turning 13, consequently avoiding stretch marks, at least for the time being. Screw you, Nurse Pierce. Over 50 years later, my calorie counting regime remains robust, if not always effective. The numbers continue to tabulate in my mind, but my body doesn't always pay attention. The thing my mother neglected to mention, a small by the way, was that just because I beat the turning 13 deadline to prevent the acquisition of stretch marks didn't mean I had eradicated the potential for stretch mark acquisition indefinitely. Like my mother, who absorbed the fat girl identity, unless I starve myself rail thin, and even then I cannot rid myself of a little belly. In my self-perception, I stand beside her, one fat girl with another. Retired and rambling with my dogs in the local park, I'd often encounter assortments of corporately dressed men and women briskly walking. At a certain point, like cuckoo clock figurines returning to the clock chalet after the hour has been chimed, they turn abruptly, perhaps tethered by their lunch hour, and are reeled back into the office. Ironically, it makes me think of this walking diet quest made by my 6th grade self and the scars it left behind. Fuck me, Nurse Pierce. The pee dance. When I was 4, I dreaded going to nursery school. It wasn't just being there. I often felt like I was being held hostage. It was also getting there and back. Our neighbor, Mrs. Whip, ferried me and other classmates to and from school in her late 1950s Woody station wagon. Since she lived down the block, I was among the first to be collected. Crouched in the rear of the station wagon, I felt like a dog on a family trip, restrained from sticking my nose out the window, or the first person entering an elevator squeezed to the back as everyone else crowds in. I'd ride around with her as she gathered my fellow nursery school mates. This meant having to be up the earliest. I've never been a morning person. It also meant being among the last to be dropped off at the end of the day. On the way home, I often had to pee. I'd go to great efforts to hold it in while kid after kid was dropped off before me. I employed the technique of the pee dance, sitting cross-legged in the back of the station wagon, holding myself between my legs and rocking from side to side to distract myself from the urge. Sometimes I had to pee so badly I would start to shake. One time, it exasperated Mrs. Whip so much that when she stopped to let another girl off across town, she sternly snapped at me, "Lily, go with Rosemary, asked to use her bathroom." Everybody snickered as Rosemary tossed her hair back and, turning to me, rolled her eyes. "Come on, Lily." She pranced to her house with me beet red in tow. In retrospect, Mrs. Whip must have been quite irritated when day after day I trembled in the back of her station wagon, doing my best to hold it in until I reached the safe haven of my home. One reason these used to routinely happen was because in nursery school, toilet time was regimented. A group activity penciled into our daily schedule. The bathroom consisted of 3 stalls. At a specified time each day, we formed a line waiting for the next available stall. There was considerable pressure to perform at the precise time when the group activity was to go to the bathroom. There was shame associated with not performing. I had trouble peeing when my turn came. Waiting in line, I became increasingly agitated. I'd go into the stall and sit to no avail. Then, to please the teachers, I pretended that I'd succeeded. Consequently, the frantic rides home at the end of the day. The constant pressure and my failure to succeed became so unmanageable that once I hid to avoid going to nursery school. Typically, Mrs. Whip would stop out front with the motor running and tap the horn twice, 2 little polite chirps, so as not to disturb the neighbors. Then I'd run outside. That morning after breakfast, instead of standing by the front door, I sneaked back upstairs, crouched down, and peered through the staircase balusters, waiting. When Mrs. Whip beeped and I did not come out, she leaned harder on the horn. Still no me. Soon there was a rapping on the door. "Hello, Mrs. Whip. How are you?" My mother answered the door. "Lily hasn't come out." Mrs. Whip crossed her arms and started tapping her foot. She was not a patient woman. I almost gave in, ready to surrender to her demanding presence. It was like she knew I was right there and was willing me to come downstairs. But then my mother said, "Why, she was just here a minute ago." Her voice sounded so calm. I gathered my resolve, tiptoed down the hall, and crept into my closet. "Lily, Lily, are you upstairs?" My mother called me as she climbed several stairs. I buried myself deeper and deeper into the closet and held my breath. Finally, she gave up, and to my relief, called down to Mrs. Whip. "Oh, well, I guess she's not going to school today." "All right, good day," Mrs. Whip said formally. When I heard the door slam resolutely shut from upstairs, I exhaled. The guilt I felt, even at 4 years old, there was no escaping guilt, was minor compared to the relief at not having to go to school that day. This early pressure around performing during a scheduled bathroom breaks at nursery school, which I failed to do, and the frantic rides home, compounded with my bedwetting issues, affected my attitude about school and later work for the rest of my life. My performance anxiety only increased in elementary school, attaching to a multitude of daily activities and social expectations. In kindergarten, I was stressed about being late. My father already off to the train station, my mother used to wake me. I'd walk the half mile to school by myself. I could not yet tell time, so I had I had only familiarity with my routine to ground me in the assurance that I was performing correctly, such that I would arrive punctually. And getting out the door did not always go smoothly. One time I got to the classroom to find nobody there. Agitated, I eyed the clock, trying to make sense of the position of the hands. Like an indecipherable puzzle, it looked back at me impassively. By this point, I was positive I was so late that the class had gone on a field trip without me, that there had been some permission slip I forgot to take home. I panicked and rushed to the school office in tears, terrified that I had done something wrong. An office staff woman escorted me back to the classroom. There we found one little boy, Freddie, sitting on a toy truck, pushing himself around, not the least concerned about being the only person in the room. It turned out I was so early I'd gotten there before everyone else, including the teacher. Years later, I looked Freddie up on Facebook. In his profile picture, he is standing by a motorcycle with the same nonchalant, fearless attitude that I envied in kindergarten. On my route to school, I passed by the principal, Mr. Boyle's house. Although I never saw him, I dreaded passing by. I used to have nightmares in which he became a ball of fire that rolled after me, chasing me to school. Just recently, I found a second grade class picture. The teacher and the principal's names were listed. He was not Mr. Boyle, spelled B-O-I-L, at all. He was Mr. Boyle, B-O-Y-L-E. I was amazed that for 60 years he had remained Mr. Boyle, the burning ball of fire. I never asked anyone else if they thought of him this way or confused the spelling of his name, but early on I felt like a misfit in school, and I imagined the principal would have no tolerance for misfits. Contributing to the feeling that I was an outlier was the infamous Mrs. Brain. She ran the extracurricular reading program. Kids who were pulled out of the routine class schedule to be tested for reading speed and comprehension. When I was selected, there was always the moment of dread that I would never return, or that I was designated to go because I was bad or just plain wrong, and that inevitably I was going to fail. The room where we went was like a dungeon. In the building's basement, the slit-like windows allowed daylight to enter, but afforded no view, like being in prison. We were given a short story to read as fast as possible while making sure we understood the details. After we were done, we took a comprehension test. Like in a race, Mrs. Bray would give us a signal to start reading. After a little while, she would begin marking the finish lines at regular intervals on the blackboard. When each student was done reading the story, they were supposed to write down the last number she had written. That number would reflect their reading speed. I can still hear the sound of chalk scraping on the blackboard as she wrote. As soon as she started marking down times, I felt like it already failed the speed test. Like when I run a 5K race, I am still on the first leg of the course when the fast runners are passing me by on the return to the finish line. I always finish close to last. Each time she scratched a number on the board, I'd look up to see how far behind I'd fallen. Then I turned back to the story, scrambling to find my place, increasingly panicked, holding my breath. I'd skim over the words in an effort to finish sooner, barely grasping the details. Then, when I completed the piece, I'd mark down an earlier time from the blackboard, 1 or 2 before the time I actually finished. I figured best not to represent my time by too much so as to avoid getting caught. This experience soured my interest in reading. My mother was furious with the school, but the damage was done. Thank you for that, Mrs. B. Rats' nests and air raid drills. In 4th grade, I had a year of reckonings with Mrs. Stitch. Her light salt and pepper curls, her prim lipstick, red mouth, and a perpetual pout of disapproval, enunciated eyebrows, eyes glaring through cat glasses, decked with rhinestones at the outer edges. She lorded over the class in a shirtwaist dress, stockings, and heels like a drill sergeant. I knew I was going to be one of her marks that year. It was just a matter of time. First, she pronounced to the entire class that someone didn't have the faintest idea how to spell title. Everybody laughed. Like a stand-up comedian hungry for the audience laughter, she took the joke further. She said, This person thinks that title should be rhymed with little and has put 2 T's in the middle of the word. How silly is that? Everyone continued laughing, including me. What a dumbo, duh. Then in full throttle, duh, I visualized the word I had spelled. Tittle, like little. I took a sharp inhale. My face got hot. I stopped laughing, surrounded by a classroom of kids laughing at someone. That someone turned out to be me. I was the other of which she spoke. Mortified, I slid down on my chair, hoping no one would notice the blushing. Later that year, she upped the ante. In her first public denouncement of me, I had remained unidentified. I was embarrassed for myself, but it had been a relatively private humiliation. Mrs. Stitch knew she was talking about me in front of the class. She knew I would know, and if she thought about it, she knew I would be desperate to keep my identity unrevealed. In her action, she was saying to me, Lily, you know I know it was you, and you are lucky nobody else has figured it out yet. The second time she called me out, it was public. I felt like I'd been cast down in the town square to be laughed at by my peers. In the middle of a lesson, she stopped and stared at me. Then she snapped, Lily, you need to bring a hairbrush to school tomorrow. You have rats' nests in your hair. There was no end to the laughter. That night at home, in tears, I told my mother. She set to work combing out my hair. Some of the tangles were so bad she had to cut them out. She worked on them until 10 o'clock. I had been unaware my hair was full of tangles. Each morning when I brushed it, I was just skimming the surface. When I went to school, the tangles emerged like rodents peeking out through the thin layer I'd brushed. Had my mother not realized? The next morning, my mother braided my hair into 2 tight braids. When I asked to take a hairbrush to school, my mother told me it would not be necessary. But she told me to bring a hairbrush. In 4th grade, I interpreted this literally. My mother was adamant, no. When I got to school in braids, once again, I was the laughing stock. Where's your hairbrush, Lily? That's enough, Mrs. Stitch, snarled at Pip, the boy who had started the teasing. She was a severe woman, and she silenced him quickly. But really, she had started the whole thing in the first place. To this day, I don't know if she was so obtuse to not realize the power to shame she possessed, or if she subscribed to it as a tool, her personality containing a touch of sadism, just on the safe side of persecution. Clearly, it was a failing on my mother's part, but Mrs. Stitch avoided that conversation and used me as the conduit to get to her. And by specifically not allowing me to take a hairbrush to school, my mother passed her defiance of Mrs. Stitch right back at her through me. Fuck you, Mrs. Stitch. You dare judge me through my daughter? Fuck you, fuck you, fuck you, and goddamn you to hell. By this point, I could not even keep track of the number of transgressions I was to blame for. The guilt became a heavy, amorphous mess, more tangled than the worst rat's nest my mother had cut out of my hair. That's it. I'm done.
Yay! All right. So, wow, that was very intense. That must have been hard.
Oh, God.
Right? That doesn't sound like you had a very good experience with teachers.
Nah.
All right. So, Sue, I will let you go. And I'll go ahead. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
And I will, of course, and I will go ahead and bring up our next person, who's Tom Broderick. Tom has, let's see, I mean, he's done all kinds of things. Oh, well, Thomas Kichi, I guess, actually is his pen name. So he has published something in the literary journal, The Artful Dodge. Came in 2nd place, I think, for mainstream historical, kind of the catch-all genre thing for Pikes Peak Writers Zebulon Award, and which is actually quite an accomplishment since it is such a general category. So we've got Tom. So hello. Are
Hello.
you in California where everything's on fire?
Yes. But I'm in
Nice.
safe, thankfully.
Okay. All right. Well, that's good. I mean, you're a writer, so mentally you're never in a safe place, but physically, yes. Okay. So, yeah, I will, I guess, let you go forth with what you have for us tonight. And I'm sure it's going to be interesting. And so, yeah, I'll let you just
Go, I guess. Thanks, Amy. Tonight, I hope you'll forgive my my theme is still school and crushes, but it may not have a teacher in it. So my story is called "The Eminent Young Ladies of Chesterfield Elementary Send a Liaison." Quiet. I'd like to officially open today's Eminent Young Ladies of Chesterfield Elementary Society meeting. Madame Simone presiding. Sheila Simone's voice echoed through the clubhouse as the rustling of plastic flip-flops slowly dwindled. The air smelled of nail polish and someone's cherry coke lip gloss. First motion, raised by our chair of spring season hairstyles, Miss Blair Cunningham. And Blair stands from her seat, stationed next to Sheila and the rest of the board, high above the constituents, and curtsies, is to dispatch a liaison to the Boys' Society with the express purpose of gathering intelligence on the methods and structure employed by the decision-making agencies in which they operate. My fellow constituents' voices buzzed like bees across the Valentine's pink construction paper walls. The Boys Club. Finally! I wonder what they do over there. Do you think they talk about us? Every girl here secretly hoped they were mentioned, or better yet, noticed. However, a public insistence invited scrutiny, so I just kept myself on the down low. There was an infinitesimal possibility that I perhaps, maybe, liked this guy named Jackson who plays soccer every recess. Admitting that would have invited swarms of girls to feast themselves on the pheromones of possible drama. I know well what I'm speaking. We Chesterfield Elementary girls were willing to admit a cherry pit of interest in the subject, but only as a collective. Sheila Simone now quelled the hive with her sumo wrestler hands. All in favor? Dozens of hands graced the air, the different shades of nail polish like rainbow sprinkles in a cardboard sky. The motion was passed unanimously. All right, then, that's all taken care of. Great suggestion, Miss Cunningham. The board has decided that this motion would be most effective in its immediate implementation. Therefore, the task will be assigned to Miss Iverson. Wait, what? Me? Hold on, that's not fair. My voice escaped my head before I could quash it back in, sounding more like a police siren than the confident dissent I would have preferred. What's not fair, Miss Iverson? Why'd you elect me out of everyone to go to the stupid guys club? This isn't my thing, it's Blair's. I don't give a rat's, Miss Iverson. Sheila snapped my next word in half with a massive sonic bellow. Patootie, I whispered. The papier-mâché chandelier quivered. That language, as you well know, Miss Iverson, will not be tolerated in this society. We are ladies of high class and merit, women of great strength and elegance. We've no reason to lower ourselves to such destitution as profanity. Please, be respectful. Sheila, that's Madame Simone, Miss Iverson. Sheila Simone had been my best friend since preschool. We used to chase her cat around her backyard and whine to her mom that Sheila's big brother wouldn't let us play wiffle ball with him and his friends. Then something changed over one summer, and when we came back to school, a club was formed for the sole purpose of the betterment of Chesterfield Elementary girls in the areas of personal discovery, social perception, situational understanding, and critical analysis of gender roles in the field. Mostly we confined recess to a decorated cardboard shack that she had put together. Sheila had discussion topics. I didn't get it, but after seeing how many other girls wanted to talk about stupid patootie stuff too, I didn't want to be left out. I don't see how this is relevant to me. Well, you're going to do it, Miss Iverson, for the good of the whole. A riotous "hear, hear" floated through the room on chintzy perfume and the aforementioned lip gloss. Sheila quieted the constituents. I opened my mouth to protest further, but her whale-like voice cut me off again. Miss Iverson, there is a system in place here. Our decisions are subject to rigorous discussion by committees of able-minded 13-year-olds and fed through the processing arms of many trustees on the board. This society is in place so that no action will be taken without the proper thought behind it. These young women position themselves before the board daily, bearing their souls to us, imploring direction from the school's most esteemed female experts. For no girl can know a true course of action without the intense deliberation of a collection of her peers. This society is the reason girls know what to do in any given circumstance. Do you understand? I would like to raise a vote on the grounds that my assignment is ludicrous and unwarranted. Sheila sighed. The scant giggles rising from the pack of constituents urged me forward. And what proof, Miss Iverson, have you to present? I said, reaching for something, anything. Blair's got a mad crush on Jake Bellamy. As I said this, the high-pitched squeals of half the constituents made the clubhouse walls vibrate. Blair's face became a seething cherry bomb, red as a ripened strawberry, her lower lip shriveling like a salt-soaked slug. She gazelled from her seat toward me, the other Chesterfield Elementary chair sprawling in front of her, holding her back. I invited her toward me, arms out. Apparently, I'd guessed right. Sheila slammed her gavel repeatedly on her desk, attempting to mollify the situation, which was now more akin to a title bout weigh-in. Quiet, quiet, ladies! She directed the gavel at me, eyes ablaze. The hive was chattering like mad. My accusation toward one of the society's top officers provoked the rest of the constituents to oust as many of their female friends as possible. Screeches of overexcited girls escaped the fray. This insolence will not be tolerated, Miss Iverson. I think you had better begin your assignment right away. Out, before I call the Royal Female Arms of Chesterfield Elementary. A few meaty girls in the corner stopped gnawing on Sour Patch Kids long enough to notice their mention. How about we raise this one to a vote, then? I yelled over the madness, strafing my way to the door with two birds in the air behind me. The boys' club was across the recess yard from the girls' club. It had been formed sometime after its counterpart, a tawdry response, it seemed. After having adjusted to the tasteful twinkling of the icicle lights in the clubhouse, the sun outside was a searing ball of fury on my eyes. The space between the clubs consisted of a splotchy field of crabgrass that was nearly deserted. Stragglers, outcasts, kids from other grades who'd missed an invite to either club milled about. I began trudging across, resigning myself to my mission, but was soon interrupted by the sound of my name. Molly! A short-haired urchin reminiscent of a Dickens novel was suddenly skipping over to me. He grinned wide, showing off misaligned front teeth and pink gums. This boy, I knew him. It was Andy, a classmate of mine since preschool. He had freckles and long eyelashes and had sealed his fate as a pariah amongst the boys one day when he'd come to school wearing a dress. I hadn't spoken to him in a while, us being placed into different homeroom classes. Today, he was wearing overalls. My eyes instinctively darted away from him. I don't know what it was. Maybe the sun beating down on us like the all-seeing eye of Ra, or the desire to protest Sheila's stupid assignment, but something compelled me to stop marching, swallow my knowledge of the unfair social caste of the schoolyard, and actually try to be nice. Hey, Andy, I said, what you up to? I'm playing royalty with Miss Sophie. Oops, I mean Queen Sophie. He pointed with relish to a spot 10 yards away where a plastic tea set was arranged around a panting corgi. A purple bandana was cinched loosely around its neck with a binder clip. Is that right? You're having tea with her? I'm guarding Her Majesty while she judges her subjects. I'm her knight. You want to come play too? You could be the royal cook. She hasn't eaten lunch yet. That sounds fun, I said, gritting my teeth. But I'm on an assignment right now. I motioned toward the girls' clubhouse. Ah, too bad, he said. If you want, you can come play later. Her Majesty's door is always open. A benevolent ruler she is, I said, resuming my journey. He waved and skipped back to Sophie, whose tongue, lolling outside her mouth, glistened. Who goes there? The eyes behind the comically slanted peephole in the cardboard door scanned me. Molly Iverson, eminent young ladies of Chesterfield Elementary Society. I'm from the girls' club. The cardboard door opened, bidding me my first glimpse into the mystery of the masculine modus operandi. The boys' clubhouse was like our clubhouse in the same way a mortuary was like an Olive Garden. The only light emanated from a blue television screen at the center of the room. Crayon manifestos and prized Pokemon cards adorned the walls, adding color to the windowless brown of cardboard that crept everywhere. They'd not even painted the walls. They didn't paper over them. Dead grass, the color of oatmeal, poked out underneath the cardboard floor, gasping for air. Pillows were strewn about, boys lounging on them, unaware a member of the opposite sex had infiltrated. Seeing only the tops of their heads, their noses stuck in their various handheld entertainment, they were like a collection of menacing eyeless golems. Had a boy set foot in our clubhouse, the girls would be forced alongside the walls as if by magnetic repulsion. Who's the, what do you call it here? Who's in charge? A few boys glanced up, but no second thoughts were given to me. They needed to return to poring over their comic books, taking notes for future careers as enigmatic heroes no one needed. Finally, after sensing the inactivity of the rest, a tall, slender boy rose from watching the television and came over to me. It was Jackson, the incredible, mythical soccer boy. I'd never been this close to him. His nose was perfectly shaped. It looked softer than any of the Beanie Babies in my room. His cheeks made me want to taste lipstick on my pale lips. "I guess I'm in charge," he said. A neuron bullet shot through my brain when I heard this voice, but the effect was soon dampened by one of Sheila's mantras: "We are women of great strength and elegance." "I'm Molly Iverson from the girls' club." My hand floated out between us. He shook it quickly. I took a second to wish he had taken his time. "I'm Jackson. What's up?" A boy from a heap at the back effused a slinky remark toward us. The others ignored him. He must have been that one kid. "I'd been sent to compile a report on the organization of your club's administration and decision-making entities," I said. His eyes glazed over for a moment, like a gnome was running through his brain trying to find syllables that fit into this puzzle I had just presented. I waited the amount of time it takes to fake brush your teeth, and then I decided to try again. How do you boys decide things? How does the guys' club work?" His hand slowly and deliberately rose to his chin as his brow furrowed. I could feel the police siren voice creeping back up from somewhere. "How do you delegate? Are there separate entities or branches? Do you have a diet?" Now his mouth was gaping like a spaceship about to expel 1,000 escape pods. "Christ, don't you make decisions around here?" This banshee's screech alerted the boys that an alien was present. I glanced around the dark chat to find these disembodied, illuminated eyes sizing me up now. Cat eyes in an alleyway. It was the same feeling as that going to school in your underwear dream. Pink nakedness. Well, I guess they finally noticed me. Jackson, cool as ever in the 5 minutes I'd known him, thought for a moment. He looked astute. His collected silence slithered around my neck, started to tighten, choking me. I thought, "Say something, you ass." I felt like both asking what his favorite ice cream flavor was and thrusting my fist into his gut. At long last, he spoke, and it was just one simple, clearly enunciated sentence. "The hell are you talking about?" As if they'd all been waiting for the punchline, the club erupted in a cacophony of laughter. High fives were given, hands slapped backs, and an abundance of merriment was surely to be enjoyed that day by all. I was affixed to the ratty floor like a malformed totem pole, feeling like I shouldn't belong anywhere. The makeshift walls must have had great acoustics because the laughter sounded like it was rising from an opera house. Jackson wiped an imaginary tear as he pounded another athletic boy's fist. "What do you mean, decide things? We just do things. It's not that hard, dude," he said. "I'm not a dude, I'm a lady." I responded just as Sheila had taught us. "Whatever, man. You should stop thinking so much." "But what do you do about, if you guys want something, or if you feel like..." "We don't feel, man. Whatever happens, happens, and then we deal with it. No other choice except doing that. You figure it out yourself. If the guy can't do that, it's on him. He needs to take care of his own business." He waved me off like a king dismissing his flailing jester, and strutted back to his pillow in front of the TV. Another boy had taken it but scampered off after Jackson cited a prior double tap for his seat back. I said nothing. I was alone. The room grew quiet as only the polyphonic sounds of SpongeBob from the TV resonated. No boy looked at me. No boy cared about why I was there. No boy even cared that I was from the girls' club. I silently exited the clubhouse and in the same blinding light from before. After a few yards, the slimy arrogance of the place finally started seeping off, but it still felt like my feet weighed 200 pounds each. They didn't want to keep moving back toward the girls' club, no matter what I said. This report was going to be interesting, I was sure. I can imagine it now. And they have no support system either, Madame Simone. No checks, no balances. Their state is virtually anarchic. Incredible and horrifying reporting, Miss Iverson. You are a brave soul. Ladies, this information changes everything. Our society must now double down to meet the affront of impending mania with calm, cool, collected strategy. Miss Iverson, you're hereby appointed task force commander for this project. I'd rather fake sick the rest of my life. I kicked every loose clump of weeds on my way back to the girls' club. I thought about how little I had experienced chaos in my short life. I mean, how could they live with no direction and just blithe acceptance? How do they deal with that ice cream gut punch feeling? They just swallow it? For a moment, I considered turning around, busting into their cardboard rat hole and planting a huge wet one right on Jackson's mouth. That'd probably create some drama, maybe rip their smug little ring of security apart, see how they deal with psychological warfare. But it was just a moment. I couldn't kid myself longer than that. Out in the hot sun, surrounded by the wide open, indifferent landscape of mid-afternoon recess, a distressing question poked at my mind. I couldn't tell which club I'd rather be in. Yeah, there was some bad in the boys' club, but in all honesty, parts of the club looked fantastic. I mean, Jackson looked fantastic despite being such a colossal ass. Their life seemed simpler, at least. There was no for the good of the whole, no committees recommending further action, no queen or hive constructing mazes of honeycombs. I meandered around, my pace slowing until eventually I was going nowhere. I had the feeling the recess bell was going to ring soon. Just as I was thinking this, an enthused voice once again grabbed my attention. Hey, Molly. Hey, Andy. He must have been nearby, but in my muddle of scorching anger and embarrassment, I hadn't noticed him. How'd your assignment go? He asked. Not great. I'm sorry, he said. Do you want to come play with Sophie and me now? I stood and stared at that goofy face of his. I stared at his freckles, his jaunty front teeth he hadn't grown into yet, the ears too big for his face. I watched a bead of sweat detach from his hairline, and as it glided from his forehead, down his temple, his cheek, and finally into the dimple at the side of his mouth, I experienced an amalgam of emotions. But instead of worrying about sorting them out from each other like socks in an underwear drawer, I just stopped. Out here, with this intense heat of daylight's highest hour, and the wide open, indifferent landscape of afternoon recess, I could feel it. He and I, we weren't really different from each other. I said. Andy waited, then shifted to his back foot. You're still on assignment? It's okay if you're busy, Molly. No, it's not that, I said, wiping the sweat from my own forehead. Still felt really hazy, but my head was clear enough to know something. No matter when the bell was going to ring, Sheila, Blair, and the constituents could wait. I cleared my throat. Could I be the knight instead of the cook? His face lit up. Sure, I'll be the cook then. I followed him back to the tea setup and sat next to Sophie, who continued to pant through a mindless smile. Now that I was sitting, I realized my stomach was upside down, like when I'd wake up at night and I just needed to tell my parents that I couldn't sleep. I choked some saliva down, took one more look toward the boys' clubhouse. Hey, Andy, I said, do you care you're not in the boys' club? Not really, he said. Why, is it different than the girls' club? Oh, they laugh and eat Oreos while we have serious debates about whether or not Janie's new dress makes her look fat. He thought for a moment. Well, it fucking does, he said, extending an empty hand to me, palm up. Crumpet, Madam Iverson? I took the make-believe crumpet, bit into it, and savored the foreign flavor. And that's all. Thank you very much.
All right. Awesome. That was great.
Thanks for listening.
So, yes, I'm sorry for not giving you an actual formal go. I just, I never know what to tell people. So,
It's all right.
what to tell myself, so whatever. But yes, awesome job. And yeah, I guess
introduce you. Are you, because you're going next, right?
Yeah, I'm going next. I don't have anyone to introduce me. I don't have people for that. Did you want to introduce me? I'm sure that would be interesting.
Ladies,
yes, share your real thoughts.
Ladies and gentlemen, Amy, who has put together, I don't know how many of these, half a dozen of these so far, but is very active, as she's mentioned, in the Colorado writing scene. I think that's about it. I think you could say the rest for yourself.
That's it. Yeah, I know. Well, it's hot for it's hot for teacher theme, and I'm so awesome, and I'm such a great mentor. So of course, yeah.
We were all
right. That's what it. We were all thinking that. Okay, so thank you, Tom. I'll let you go. So this is my piece, and it is autobiographical, but actually a lot of what I write is autobiographical because even though I have been writing since I was like 3, I am not very creative, I don't think. So I don't make things up. I mostly talk about the embarrassing parts of my real life, and then I tell people about them, and I have no shame. And I don't know what that's about. I'm probably weird. But anyway, I will go and read my story. And I just wanted to let you know that I am hosting the show. So if during this time I don't highlight your comment or I don't put the banner on the screen saying, please subscribe to our channel, it isn't because I'm trying to favor myself or trying not to put the banner on myself. It's just that I can't read my story on the screen and do that at the same time. So I apologize in advance if I kind of stink at hosting for a little bit, but I can only do one thing at a time. So here we go. This is called Lunch and Learn. I wasn't having the best year of my life, but I had a weekend off in Princeton with fellow writing people, and I wasn't going to let a little utter misery ruin my good time. Sure, things got off to a rough start. I ended up sobbing, holding hands with a complete stranger during a pre-conference intensive called Body of Writing. That was actually like a yoga and writing kind of thing that we were doing. On Monday, I'd go back to finding classes and filling out forms for college students who were supposed to do it online. Nobody enforced the rule. Dogs are infinitely patient, but there's only so much whining a human can endure. There was lots of other stuff too, but I had a black dress and a cocktail mixer. The real world could wait. I'd been attending conferences sponsored by the Society of Children's Book Writers and Illustrators, that's SCBWI, but we won't go there, since childhood. But nothing prepared me for the East Coast version. Most conference attendees were teachers, and that meant every mixer offering free food involved middle-aged women dutifully lining up and saving seats with random jackets, conference packets, and ethnic totes, while they lined up for toothpick delights and lukewarm coffee. I went to the upstairs bar, ordered a tuna sandwich and a glass of white wine, came back and slipped into the one unblocked spot. Sure, I was sitting by myself, but I didn't see my friends. Still groggy from a nap, I didn't have the energy to wait until they spotted me. A very Manhattan-looking blonde came over and said, "I have a few friends coming. Is it okay if we sit with you?" "Of course," I said. Several other women who looked a lot like her plus one man, who also looked suspiciously like them, appeared within moments. Then they started talking about alumni mixers at Wellesley, Swarthmore, and Dartmouth, and how badly they wanted to avoid them, and how they simply couldn't figure out what to paint an apartment to go with the scandalous red couch they'd just bought. "Dove gray," I said. "It's fashionable and it goes with everything." "Brilliant," blonde girl said. "Thank you so much." Then they started talking about books they knew they should have read but didn't have time to get to. One of them was Atonement by Ian McEwan. I said it was a bit of a rough go, but interesting. I was glad I finally got around to it. "Who do you represent?" the brunettes asked. "Represent? You're an agent, aren't you?" "Oh, no, I just sat here." The man raised an eyebrow. "Wow, you seem to know a lot about books." "Yes, I write them. Isn't that the idea, to know a lot about books?" He leaned uncomfortably close and said, "You're right. But a lot of the people who attend these things don't understand that. Also, dare I say, that dress is so fetching." I looked at the smudge on his tie and said, "Isn't that baby spit up?" He pulled away and held his tie up closer to his face. "Huh, I believe it is." He excused himself to wash the tie in a sink. I scanned the room and spotted two of my friends bouncing in place, waving and giving me the thumbs up. Clearly, I needed to let them know that I wasn't that cool. I said my goodbyes to Wellesley, Swarthmore, and Dartmouth, grateful that I didn't owe a donation to any of the alumni funds, and headed to my friends. "How did you end up with all those agents?" Mary Sue asked. "I just sat there and they came over." Mary Sue looked at Beth and back to me. They both scanned my outfit. "Ladies, I'm pretty sure they just needed a place to sit." Once I'd done my best to convince them that I had not actually cracked the agent code, we proceeded to enjoy our wine together. Eventually, this morphed into sitting in the upstairs lounge and dishing about which male faculty members were most likely to try to hook up with the attendees. "That guy by the pool table," Beth said. "He just joined a new house. I've been watching him all night, and he has gotten at least 5 numbers." "That's disgusting," I said. Mary Sue shook her head. "What a dog." "Hey, I know what we could do. Let's drunk call our husbands again," Beth said. "Nah. Yours is the only one who picks up. It's depressing," I said. Soon after, we called it a night, and I went back to my room to review the workshops and figure out whose table I was assigned to for lunch. Peter Brown. I felt pretty meh about it. I barely wrote children's books, and while I thought that Children Make Terrible Pets was adorable, I didn't want to write a book like that. Also, I was sure Peter Brown was some sweet old guy who would just sit there and call me dearie the whole time. I'd probably also be surrounded by a bunch of old ladies. The next day, I powered through my morning sessions, fueled by about 10 cups of catering company coffee substitute, and snagged a seat right next to Peter Brown. Lunch was buffet style. So what this really meant was leaving my books on the seat next to the one with his nameplate on it while I hunted for as much shrimp as possible. Upon my return to the table, I noticed I was surrounded by giddy young women and a giddy young man who wanted to tell me all about his recent picture book. Apparently, he'd recently attended one of the highlights intensives and just had his book accepted by an agent. It was about monkeys who steal drinks from tourists on this beach on a tropical island. It's a real place, and the monkeys are drunk. I asked him how he created a kid's version of it, and he said it wasn't easy. I'm sure Twitter is full of ancient toxicity about the horrors of a picture book that makes theft seem adorable. Then this young, handsome guy came over and sat in Peter Brown's chair. I was stunned. I didn't know what to say. I didn't really want him to leave, but it seemed inappropriate to let him just stay. I started to clear my throat. Then I realized from the way everyone was looking at him and his name tag that this was Peter Brown. I didn't expect Peter Brown to look like that. At least he went around the table in the opposite direction to ask about what people were working on and who they were. It gave me lots of time to dread my own introduction and wipe the drool off my face. And when he got to me, he smiled and gave me that go ahead motion people give you. Oh, I'm Amy. I just write stuff. Nothing you'd be interested in. I'm writing this YA book about girls who have trouble with their moms. It's probably not going anywhere. That's so interesting, Amy. I wish I could write YA. I waved it off. Lucky for me, one of the other ladies enthusiastically started spazzing about his upcoming releases and some other stuff that got lost among the, oh God, I'm sitting next to this hot guy and I keep sounding stupid thoughts floating in my girl brain. I didn't say anything for the rest of lunch. I was totally mute. Then he did the worst thing ever. He smiled at me again and he asked, do you have any other questions? I shook my head. I didn't have any other questions now. He told me he hoped I had a good conference and got up and he left. And I downed a glass of ice water and limped through the rest of the day. Mary Sue, Beth, and I partied down at the downstairs bar with a few bottles of Kendall Jackson and various comped drinks because we kept hitting on the bartender. Needless to say, I missed Kate DeCamillo's keynote address. Not a big fan of because of Winn-Dixie, but I did want to make it to the book signing. And one little problem with the book signing was I wanted to get my copy of Children Make Terrible Pets signed, but that would mean handing it to Peter Brown. And then I thought, it's a book signing. He won't remember me and he just wants to get it over with. So I went to the signing and stood in line with my 200 other closest friends. And once I got to the front of the line and handed Peter my book, he looked up at me and smiled. That's the worst. He said, oh, Amy, the person who sat next to me and didn't say anything during the whole lunch. Yeah, that's me. He smirked. autographed the book, and as he handed it back to me, he held on to it for just a second too long. He said, "Enjoy." I nodded and tried not to walk into people as I made my way out of the hotel and back to my car. And that is my story. And, just for reference, I want to share. Oh, maybe I can't share. Yeah, I don't know if I can share my picture, the screenshot of Peter Brown, but I can tell you that if you go to Peter Brown's website, like I, thought that I was maybe weird or something, that I was looking for a, a headshot of Peter Brown for the show. And it turns out there's actually a headshot of him on his website. So apparently this is a fairly common query. So I just posted that in the comments for you to enjoy. So you can see what Peter Brown looks like and understand what I was going through at the time, maybe. So anyway, I will just go ahead and let everybody come back for all the thingies here. So let's see, I'm going to add okay, so I've got Helen here, I've got KD, I've got Tom, and I've got Sue. So we've got everybody here now, I think. So this is awesome. So yeah, so I mean, this is like the perfect recipe for chaos, because we've got 5 people here. Yes, 5. I never was that good in school, so I don't know.
I know what you mean.
Yeah. So anyway, we've got 5 people here. So yeah, I mean, yeah.
The platform seems to be getting better. They're getting better every single time, Amy.
Yeah, this is really
awesome.
Really professional.
That's nice.
Yes.
Yes.
Woohoo! We made it. We made it. And I haven't muted myself at all, so I am
not one time.
a major win. Yeah, that's been a normal feature of our recordings and everything. So I mean, I feel like this is good. Yeah.
We also have my cat who wants to be part of the
that's adorable.
This is Mr.
What's
B.
the name of your cat?
In the middle of everything.
Oh, pet cameos are the best.
We had to have the pet interlude. Sorry.
Well, we had, what was it, last month? I feel like that was the month. Yeah, I think that was the month that we had like a cat in like almost every shot. It was really weird. We were trying to keep track of how many cat cameos we had, and then we lost track because we just couldn't keep track. So yeah, I mean, pets are a thing. But anyway, I mean, it seems like this particular theme, it's like a lot of people, there was like, a lot of like funny stuff that came up, but also like some painful stuff that came up. I mean, especially for Sue, and I feel like kind of in a direct way indirect way for Tom. And Katie, you just had everybody like badass, killing each other. Helen, I mean, I can totally empathize with the thing of like, you've got this hot teacher and you're like, wow, I am really making progress. I mean, we're drinking together. I might get to see him with his clothes off. He's really hot.
And he's gay.
He's gay. Of course.
Which is fine, except if you want to have a non-gay relationship, then it's not fine.
Yeah, it's just, I mean, it's like, wow, I'm so glad somebody out there is writing about my life.
Yeah.
So true.
It was great that we
Okay,
had
painfully
such a
true.
different variety of stories.
Yeah.
It was really cool, even around a similar theme.
Yeah.
And they all, I feel like, had great, like, punch-worthy, like, things happening in them.
Yeah.
And, like Helen's with the reveal, KD's reading is like off the charts.
Yeah.
Sue is always just like right to the heart, right to the bone.
KD, I thought your story was autobiographical at first. I'm like, whoa, this guy's had quite a life.
Well, with KD, it's a fine line with KD, I think.
I don't know. That bridge scene. Wow.
Yeah.
All totally made up.
Yeah.
Well, and
Katie,
Sue's story, I have to say, brought up memories of a third grade teacher of mine. So very, very realistic and very evocative.
Yeah, you know, as soon as I write them, I actually erase them from my memory.
Oh, that's good.
It's strange. It's like therapy. Like write about it and then you forget about it.
There you go. There you go.
So, I'm a little concerned that Mrs. Stitch might be around and Nurse Pierce as well. And Mrs. Brain, can you beat that name, Brain?
Yeah. I had an English teacher named Miss Bright. And she was the one that I always joke went on and on about the subtle meanings of literature. And I don't know, somehow that got connected in my brain with Miss Bright.
Yeah.
At the time I thought, yeah, you can't be that bright. Now I've changed my mind as I've gotten older, but as a high school student, that was the opinion.
Yeah, I don't want to write about the good teachers. I mean, I did have some, just the bad teachers.
Yeah.
Well, the bad teachers are more fun to write about, I think,
Yeah. What are you going to write? I love this. I love that. I love it. No. No.
Well, there were things that
I've actually learned more from bad teachers than good teachers.
Well, but tell us about that, Helen. What do you mean?
Some of them just make you work harder just to prove them wrong.
True.
And to kind of, and maybe this is just me kind of in their face with the subtle sarcasm and humor that they clearly do not get. And so it's just sort of personal revenge, I guess.
It's like despite them that you work harder?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, in regard to your nurse character, my background is as a nurse. And I always remember this one anesthesiologist that I had to work with. And he was just a bastard. I mean, let's just get it out there.
You don't want that in an anesthesiologist. Man.
Well, they can be. And he just gave me hell all the time. And so I took pure delight in proving him wrong. And my best revenge was when my best friend, who was one of the upper management in the OR that I worked in, came to me and said, Levine came and said that he didn't think you were skilled enough to work on this case and he thought I should reassign you. And I said, well, I told him, she said, that you had prepared for it and you wanted to scrub it. And so I was going to let you do it. And then she said, he came to me afterwards and he said, well, she actually did a pretty good job. And so my friend said, here, put it in writing. And he actually did. And as things progressed, we became friends. But he was the first example of, I am going to prove you wrong, come hell or high water. So in some ways, you know, the bad folks, they make you work harder.
I don't know. I was under anesthesia someplace, and apparently some stranger came in and was talking to me, and everybody in there thought he was my husband, and I thought he was too. And then when I woke up, I was like, "Where is my husband?" And they go, "Oh, he walked off." And then my husband's like, "I was never there. Who was that?" So it was creepy.
Well, yeah. Must have had something to do with the case.
Yeah.
At least we hope. At least we hope.
Yeah. He might have been like the husband of the person next door or something.
No, that
wandering
could be.
around.
That could be.
Yeah. I never even knew there was a profession like that for years.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I did get a big fat bill from one guy, but it was an accident. But it was like $4,000.
Oh, I know. It's all billed separately.
Right? And I was like, I can't pay this. And luckily it turned out I'd just gone through the wrong channels. You know.
There you go.
Oh my God. But of course he was cool when he drove downtown in New York in his sports car. It was a little late for the anesthesia. You know, I'm like, whatever. God.
What happened to KD? Did he disappear?
So Katie had to go to work.
Aw.
But
Now,
yeah, I know.
he should write that story.
Yeah.
Man. Working nights. Oh, but wait, where is he on the West? He's in California? No, you're in California.
He lives in Littleton, I think.
Where is
Yeah,
he?
Tom's in California.
Okay.
Katie's over in Littleton, I think.
I think
In
so.
Littleton, Colorado.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the rest of us are in Colorado. Tom's over in California where everything's on fire, but Tom's
Yeah.
okay. He's not burning up right now. So
Tom, where are you from?
I'm actually originally
He's
from
from-
Idaho.
But I mean,
Yes.
right now, where are you?
Right now, I'm in Orange County,
Yeah.
so not close enough to be in need of being ready to evacuate anything, and thankfully not anywhere where the air quality is really dangerous.
Yeah, my brother's in San Francisco. He's freaking out.
Yeah.
I just can't believe it. California is the best place in the world, except when it's not. You know.
Well, and we've had our fair share of fire here this season.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
We're talking about. It's been actually, you know, despite the horrible situation, the photographs from Colorado that I've seen are just otherworldly. They're so beautiful in their awfulness, I guess. It amazes me every time I see them. It's like, oh my God, this is so beautiful, and it's so awful.
Yeah.
But
Well,
I had people who take the pictures.
I'm actually from New Jersey originally, but yeah. I actually grew up in Swarthmore. I grew up in Swarthmore, Amy. You were
Oh
talking.
my God, I'm so sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. I mean,
I
I worked in the dining hall at the college. I mean, I was just a high school kid, but yeah, they were pretty. But they're pretty smart group of people. But yeah, they definitely have airs. So
Airs, yes.
Yeah.
That's a nice way of putting it. It's much more polite than the way I did it in my story. I'm just an asshole. I can't help it.
no, your story is great. I think you could do it. A TV series would be hilarious.
So you're just sweet. You're just like, oh, you can do anything. It's fine.
Hey, you could go on TV with this platform. You know, that would be hilarious. I think I'm using that word. I'm using that word too much, but
I think we all get stuck on the word, you know, on certain words, or maybe it's pandemic brain. I don't know, but I know that I've just like gotten to the point where I'm like, there's a certain word and I'm like, oh my God, I'm using this all day. I must be driving people bonkers, you know, but it's just, I can't help myself. I'm like, brain just stuck on words.
I have to go through manuscripts and pick out favorite words and search for them, because I use them to the point where when I go and search for them, I think, really? This didn't occur to you that you were using this every time you turned around? So, it's unfortunately you can't monitor your verbal garbage like that.
Yeah, this woman in the writing group in New Jersey I'm in, she said that she searched for the word perhaps in the story, and she found she'd use it like 30 or 40 times.
I know.
Yeah.
It's
Perhaps.
amazing, really, when you start to
We've
think
all got,
things.
Yeah, that's
yeah,
cool.
we've all got something like that. It's like perhaps, little, whatever, slight, I don't know. It's whatever you've got. But anyway, I mean, I don't know. I don't like to keep anybody too long after 9 p.m. Mountain Time, because I know that, we're writers. We have to be writing. We have to be like giving our spouses or partners attention once in a while, I guess, so they don't leave us. I mean, we are incredibly sexy and good looking, but
thanks for continuing to put these on, Amy.
Yes.
Great. It's
Are you gonna post
thing during the pandemic to get to do these, to get to be part of a community and to talk to people and hear other stories is wonderful.
That's
and
great.
You're organizing them and coming up with the themes. That's awesome. So just thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Amy. That's great.
Are you gonna post this, or Amy, are you able to post this?
Yes. This is going to be like a recording of it, should be posted on the YouTube channel. I don't know exactly when they make it available. It seems like it happens pretty fast. And, we didn't really have any glitches tonight. So, I don't think there's anything I have to go back and really edit out or anything. So, I don't know. I mean, it should be fine. And yeah, I mean, I just really appreciate everybody showing up and sharing such great stories. Let's see. Somebody was asking what's up for the next few months. In the comments, I guess I can show, don't tell. Next month. So next month we've got the Spirit Realm on October 21st, and it's going to be at 7 p.m. Mountain Time. That show is probably going to run a little long because there were a lot of people who wanted to participate in it, and I think it's going to be fabulous. But we're going to have the Dollhouse Thieves performing some music again, and Aaron Michael Ritchie is going to be reading, which should be cool. Tom will be back. We're going to have some new readers on there. So, I mean, it should be a really fun time. Julia Allen's going to come back. She does a lot of great stuff with vampires, so I'm looking forward to that. And we have somebody on there who's actually a medium, so that should be interesting too.
Wow.
Is this like a Halloween show, kind of?
It's our version of a Halloween show. I never really know if it really makes sense on this channel to do a Halloween show because I know so many horror writers. It's like Halloween all the time. But yeah, I figured, broadening it out would make sense. And then in November, we're going to have Apartment Life because I figure with the pandemic, not everybody's able to get together with family. So, I mean, it's just kind of interesting, like looking at what happens with people living all around you in close quarters and what happens with that. And December is gifts for obvious reasons, but pretty broad theme category there. And, there's space in that show. So, definitely anyone who's interested, I mean, I think that could be really cool. And then, I will be looking at next year pretty soon, actually, which sounds insane, but it's going to be here before we know it. So, obviously any feedback, anything anybody wants to hear, definitely let me know. And yeah, that's what I got.
All right.
I mean, does anybody have anything coming out that they want to talk about? Like Helen, you actually have books out there people can buy, right?
I do. I've got a book that I am hoping that will debut in November at the latest. And it's just another suspense novel. They're all set in Colorado. So, that's where I was born and raised. So that feels comfortable. And so that'll be coming out. Other than that, it's just the stuff that's already out there. Go and buy it.
Do you have Do you have a website?
I do. It's HelenStarbuck.com. And I have a mystery series, and then I have a couple of standalone. The one that's just coming out is a standalone suspense. So I kind of got writer's block on the 4th edition of the mystery series. So I took a little side trip and decided to do the standalone stories.
Productive writer's block.
Yeah. I just had been banging my head against the wall for so long on number 4. I thought, well, this is obviously a dead end. So I tried something else. So, I think that's what you have to do sometimes.
Cool. Uh-oh, I can hear myself echoing.
You can't hear. I can hear you fine. You sound okay.
Okay. I did buy a microphone, so it's the first time I ever used it.
Technology.
So have you guys, other guys, Sue or Amy or Tom, have you got stuff coming out or out there?
I don't have anything out there, which is really sad. Tom's got his story on Artful Dodge. Do you have anything else, Tom?
Not anything that anyone can go by.
What about you, Sue?
I just started submitting finally.
Okay.
And I have a major issue with finishing stories, so I have tons that I have to finish.
I understand.
Yeah,
I do.
I mean, why go, Amy? You should just start a TV show.
There you go.
With like your story with those characters would be really funny. See, I didn't say hilarious. Like it's like Amy and David Sedaris or something.
If I can get David Sedaris to hook up with me for planning, I'll even take Anthony Jeselnik. I'll take anyone at this point.
I would love David Sedaris. He is so funny. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I saw him when he was really young, and I was in New York for a long time, and I saw him in the East Village, I think, with his sister Amy. In a little tiny theater, She was changing characters. Yeah. She just took a piece of Scotch tape and put it on her nose so it went like up like that, right on stage. So great. It was funny. Yeah.
She's so funny.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I really thank all of you for showing up and for, telling such great stories. And, I know that this is just, everybody's going to go on and do awesome things. At least all of you are. So,
continue.
Thanks again.
Yeah, thank you, Amy.
Thank you. Yeah, so thank you for coming and making this just such a great show. I'll let you all go on and have fun and enjoy your evening. Bye. Yeah, so anyway, thank you. I'm just gonna sign off here and say, a couple of quick things. Like our next show is on October 21st. So it's 7 p.m. Mountain Time. That's when it's going to be live. It will also be recorded, just like this show is recorded. You can catch it later if you want to. And let's see. Yeah, just subscribe, if you can, because that does actually help. It doesn't cost you anything, and it makes our channel more visible, which makes the work that everybody does here that you're enjoying, assuming you enjoyed it tonight, that much more visible. So, yeah, thank you so much and have a good night and stay safe. Take care.